I love Metroid. I love the characters, the locations, the tone, the tapestry-like plotline, the combat, the exploration. Metroid just has a formula that never disappoints me. One thing I don't love about Metroid, however, is the grueling wait between releases. But in 2017, when developer Mercury Steam took control of Metroid 2 Remake Samus Returns for 3DS, I devoured it in about a week and said, okay, now what? I never could have anticipated that just 4 years later, yes, that is a short amount of time when it comes to Metroid releases, bear with me, we would see the announcement of the 5th and supposedly final entry in the Metroid timeline. I also never would have guessed that it would end up being the long-dormant Metroid Dread project, which had been in development hell since 2005. The game was first conceived of by Yoshio Sakamoto as a DS follow-up to Metroid Fusion. Unfortunately, the hardware limitations of the DS didn't allow him to convey the vision he desired, and the project was shelved indefinitely. But, in 2021, riding off the small but promising success of Samus Returns, Nintendo rolled the dice and put Mercury Steam at the helm, this time of a new entry in the Metroid timeline, being Dread. But after all that time spent on it, just how does the 5th entry in this storied franchise stick the landing? Join me as I review Metroid Dread. Before you do, be sure to subscribe, hit the bell for notifications every time that I upload, leave a like, and comment any and all suggestions on how to improve my content. Let's get into it. Following SR-388's destruction in Fusion, the Galactic Federation receives a video transmission which shows that several X-parasites survived on a planet codenamed ZDR. In response, the Federation sent a team of 7 research robots known as E.M.M.Is to the planet to investigate. Not long after the E.M.M.I arrive, however, they go AWOL. Being the only one with an immunity to the X, Samus is dispatched and must uncover the truth of whether the X are still at large, as well as what happens to the missing E.M.M.I. After arriving, she is attacked by a mysterious Chozo, causing her to undergo physical amnesia. Basically just an excuse to take all her powers away, so you have to find them again. This sort of thing is like Metroid tradition at this point, just go with it. The way that this information is relayed, however, is excellent. The opening cutscene begins with graphics relaying the premise of this adventure before an extended action sequence with Samus arriving and being attacked by the Chozo. The feel of the cutscenes in this entire game is immaculate. They have a very cinematic feel which helps to set the tone a sci-fi zeitgeist like Metroid deserves in what is being touted as its ultimate entry. Think along the lines of The Rise of Skywalker if that movie wasn't just a fucking dumpster fire. Its presentation brings this 35-year-old narrative to a gripping culmination, and that's not even mentioning the seamless way that cutscenes flow into gameplay. Another big way Dread successfully evokes mood is its sound design. Its stellar voice acting is a major factor in this regard, whether it's the silver-tongued analytics and banter of your AI companion Adam, or the sophisticated alien language of the Chozo. The voices on show here are as alien as they are believable. You also have the typical moody soundtrack you would expect of a Metroid game, with a hearty dose of adrenaline-pumping tracks, as well as more quiet and explorative cuts which give certain areas a feeling of curiosity and introspection. It also makes superb use of the Switch's signature HD rumble, which almost makes this feel like some sort of 4D experience. All of these work seamlessly with the gameplay, which takes place across beautiful locales which feature distinctive themes and environments which are a joy to explore. The lighting and color of this experience make a gorgeous aesthetic which often emphasizes colder tones and pairs nicely with the at times sterile, laboratory-like architecture of several regions. It also makes full use of the contemporary 2.5D level design. by having a great deal of interplay between the foreground and background. Creatures are scurrying around, and the environments beyond your two-dimensional plane are very much alive. Regarding exploration, this game features a similar progression system to just about all of its predecessors. Semi-linear sections which you'll have to backtrack through in order to uncover items you couldn't access at one point in order to move forward. Fortunately, the pin system from Samus Returns makes a comeback, allowing you to mark points of interest across the map, which removes a great deal of hassle in trying to remember where an item or breakable set of blocks were. It also brings back Aeon abilities, specifically the exploration-based Pulse Radar, which reveals any breakable blocks in your vicinity while active. There's also a new feature where sections of the map will be highlighted and flash white, indicating that you've missed a collectible or item here. In combination, these three features have helped Metroid to transition away from its old bomb every surface formula of uncovering secrets. Once you unlock them, that is. Another feature which some may view as outdated is the lack of fast travel, excluding teleporters. A decision which defies the contemporary expectation of fast travel in pretty much any game. For me personally, I really like this as it forces you to scour everything with a degree of care as well as putting a bit of thought into plotting your course. A downside of this is that when traveling from area to area, the cutscenes are pretty damned long and border on throwing off the pace of exploration. Nintendo tried their hardest to hide these by creating extended cutscenes with Samus in elevators or riding monorails which don't feature the word loading. But after the first one, I'm sure everyone saw right through their tricks. I mean, come on guys. These areas are elaborate and no doubt hard to load in, but it doesn't take away from this being distracting nonetheless. Within these spaces, the movement and controls are noticeably similar to those of Samus Returns, which is far from a bad thing. Chief among these is the return of free aim, which again makes combat and exploration far less awkward. You also have an evolution of the melee counter being the dash melee, which lets you swipe at enemies while on the move, as well as the addition of the slide, which lets you navigate certain tight spaces in the early stages of the game prior to attaining the Morph Ball. Not only do these enhance exploration capabilities, but they also bring new possibilities to combat situations. Nowhere is this more apparent than Dread's boss fights, which are some of the toughest in the entire series. Oftentimes they're down to the wire and take several tries to overcome. This might be off-putting to some, but if you persevere and learn how to counter their movement patterns, you'll be rewarded with a well-deserved sense of satisfaction, plus a number of returning upgrades to increase your combat and exploration capabilities. Going about ZDR and reacquiring these iconic abilities, as well as a small handful of new ones, is a tried and true incentive to push through. For starters, there's been upgrades to several of these classic power-ups. The Morph Ball, for instance, now has the ability to jump from the moment you get it, which is a pretty big deal for Metroid, as well as the move to replace missiles altogether with super missiles once you acquire the latter. For me, these are both just no-brainers, and I'm glad that they've finally introduced them. The majority of items in this game are returning abilities, which have had minimal if any tweaks to how they work. New items like the Storm Missile, Spider Magnet and such are fun, though I do wish Dread had a few more of these to make the experience a little more distinct. I think because of this, I'd almost classify this as the new Super Mario Bros. Wii of Metroid entries. Besides bringing this long dormant franchise into the modern era, it doesn't really do a whole lot to revolutionize the progression formula. That's probably a wise choice for this, as it was for Samus Returns before it, but I do hope that going forward we might just receive a 2D Metroid that decides to shake up traversal with a slew of exclusively new abilities, or I don't know, something of that nature. In fairness though, the returning Aeon system does feature several new abilities like the Phantom Cloak and Flash Shift. These are actually quite a lot of fun to play around with and help Samus to overcome several new roadblocks to her navigation. Additionally, the decision to remove Aeon drops from enemies and opt instead for an automatic refill of the Aeon gauge is for me personally a much more enjoyable system than that of Samus Returns. One of the biggest elements of Dread is found in its E.M.M.I zones. These have been pretty polarizing amongst fans to say the least, so I'm kinda scared to talk about them, but here we go. The first E.M.M.I you find is a stellar example of foreshadowing. It's all busted up and it's far from being at its full capabilities. This is a way for it to act as a tutorial of sorts to the E.M.M.I sections, but even within this, it still poses a decent threat. The game also ensures that you know that the others won't be this easy, with Adam stressing it to you following the first encounter. When you enter just about any E.M.M.I zone, you have no means to take down these menacing, robotic, spider-like creations. Your only options are to carefully but still hastily make your way to the exit where it can't follow you, or to locate and defeat the mother brain-like central units, which will then provide you with the immensely powerful but also gone after one use Omega Cannon. This is the only way to actually defeat an E.M.M.I, but even that's easier said than done. You have to take down their defensive faceplate before finally charging your beam to take it out. Keep in mind that these things can take you out in one hit and all the while are still advancing on you even as you shoot them. You can parry this hit and then escape while it's momentarily stunned, but the timing on it for me and pretty much everyone else just feels so randomized that if you get caught, it's a death sentence. These areas also feature a very hostile soundscape where the E.M.M.I's every move kinda echoes around their domain, making you unsure of where they might even strike next. This mixture of survival horror elements is nothing new for this franchise, but the implementation here is handled well for the most part. I say for the most part because, as is the curse of many a survival horror experience, these E.M.M.I zones do get a little obnoxious after a few deaths. The terror is stripped away and essentially you're left more with a feeling of frustration because you keep getting killed by this bothersome thing. On the whole though, these are still a welcome addition and help to keep ZDR feeling like a very hostile environment to traverse. Metroid Dread is an incredible addition to the Metroid franchise. Despite not being a super revolutionary entry as well as owing a lot of its greatness to Samus Returns, the enhancements it does make are mostly for the better. It maintains the impossibly high benchmark set by its predecessors, as well as managing to remain distinctive thanks to an increased focus on cinematography, presentation, and evoking a tense atmosphere. The story is wonderful as is the gameplay, and for that reason Metroid Dread earns an 8.5 out of 10 from me. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you liked hearing my thoughts on Metroid Dread. If you did, be sure to subscribe, hit the bell for notifications when I upload in future, leave a like, and comment what you thought. If this video tickled your Metroid pickle, be sure to check out my Samus Returns video linked here. Thanks for watching, I'll see you all next time.